Single morning when we used to wake up, Mendel was always like in Zal way before then. And even when I used to wake up early, he was always one of the first to get out of bed to go to mikvah. He'd right away go to Zal and he'd start learning.
Every day, Mendel was up extra early. Kipshutei mamish, be'erech 6:30. He was already in Zal a lot of days.
He used to learn before Chassidus, early in the morning. I remember he would always wake me up, and he was always there waiting for me.
He was the one who would open the mikveh every morning. He had the key because he would be the first one to go.
The Zal by us has very big windows and window shades. During the day it gets very sunny, but derech hamela the Bachrim close the shades. Every morning I would come into Zal and the shades are wide open. After a while I realized that every morning Mendel Bluming would come into Zal. Before he would say brachas, he would go open up all the window shades in the room. Big window shades. It took a few minutes. It was a malacha. Jeder Tag öffnen. Der Rebbe hat einmal gesagt, Kara la shamish, vayizrach oir. Every morning he would start off his day bringing in lichtigkeit. This is a gashmistic thing that I saw with him. Every single day mamish. Aber in dem is euchit, der rickt sich ois stark, his anhage durch ois dem Tag.
Definitely, I sat across from him during davening. Remember that he was always focused on his davening, trying to think about his davening. He was there, he wasn't being distracted by other things.
When Mendel would daven, he would be on time, focused, no matter what.
He was very into davening. So he liked davening very slow. He'd say every word. And even if he'd missed like a bit of breakfast or anything, like everyone used to run right away out, he'd always wait there and take his time. So a lesson I really learned is that started to daven a lot slower, started to look in the English a little more, to like pay attention a lot more to what you're saying, not to run out right away after.
And if other people weren't davening the way they were supposed to, it bothered him a lot of times. He would tell you something about it.
Mendel, I think, also had a very good balance with his chavrusas, where some of his chavrusas could be more the biggest masmidim as him. It didn't take from his learning at all. And with that, he had the care to be there for his chavrusas.
When I learned with Mendel, he never got disturbed by anything. When he used to learn, he was there like b'shleimus. Like if we were learning, we were learning.
If somebody would start coming to ask him a question that was a little off track, he would tell them, no, I have to learn now, because he always wanted to use out every minute of Seder for learning.
So when I was Mendel's chavrusa for Girsa, he was very into the not getting distracted. He always, whenever there was a small distraction, he would always stop it right away.
We would get a cup of water after, but there wasn't such a thing as you stand up, get a cup of water, come back. If we were learning, it was just time to learn, nothing else.
I used to learn with Mendel. Whenever I used to get distracted, stop learning for a few minutes, he was always the one that would, get us back on track and be able to finish and get through all the material.
So we learned Shulchan Aruch together, and towards the end of the year, he would write down every halach. He would make a sikkim in his notebook.
All his notes were super mesudar, so if you ever had any questions in Eon or whatever, you could always go ask him, and he knew exactly where he was, and his binders, everything was very neat. All the pages written very nicely.
Every shiur he wrote down in a beautiful way. He used to give it to me after he finished writing it down to check over.
I remember one time he wrote down one of the shiurim. To me, it was nicer than my notes, ever, but he, decided it was not neat enough, for him to be able to look back at, so he rewrote the whole thing to be very clear.
Every single sugya, I used to watch him, how he would write down the whole toisvis and the whole shiur, and he would rewrite it a lot of times a second time, making sure it says shaint and says klor.
I remember in Zal, I used to sit next to him for one Seder. He was kind of like my meshiv. I used to ask him questions. He always knew the answer.
Whenever he came to ask a shayla in Chassidus, it wasn't just, gefrekt. It was a shayla with hands and fists. It was a shayla that was a durcha tarachta shayla. And you couldn't give him a back-ended answer. He was somebody that wanted to hear a full quality echostic answer.
Another thing is he was always very into learning. Always, even let's say by Seder, if we had a test, after the test, even though we were still Seder, but we weren't supposed to officially learn anything, he would always make sure he was learning then. And even out of Seder, on Shabbos, I always remember he'd always want to learn. We'd always go and learn Chassidus a bit.
I could comfortably say that Mendel was my best chavrusa.
He was also very involved in being mesaded the Sfarim. We got hundreds and thousands of Sfarim to Yeshiva donated.
Big library was donated to Yeshiva, and so they needed someone to catalog and write down all the names of the Svarim, and he volunteered to do it.
Mendel would work with the library a lot, and he would be like on like the second floor of the library, and he would be like listening to Nagunim.
He always took his own time out of it. It was always the famous image of Mendel Bluming. If you heard Nagunim in Zal, you know, it was him working upstairs and and with his playing on Manny Greenberg's tablet, Nagunim, just as he's working with the Svarim.
I passed through Zal, it'd be very geschmack just to see him there listening to Heichel Nagina or Nichoyach or Farbrengen to the Rebbe, not just like the Nagunim. He would probably listen to the Sichos, hear the Rebbe speak.
But there was a point in the summer where he was just going through Svarim. He used to just look at them, used to see what they're about, he used to randomly check up random Svarim. He was very, very into Svarim and learning Bechlal. He'd always learn every chance he had.
To do this, you have to have a real verstand in the Svarim. He had a klarkeit, which Svarim belong in this section, which Svarim are more Shayla Setshuva Svarim, which Svarim are Kabbalah Svarim.
He had a very big kach in a lot of old different Svarim. For example, when a Kriya Vakdusha came out, he was very interested about it. He was very interested in it.
A lot of times, when we were learning, Chali was telling me how he didn't even eat lunch that day. He was so busy arranging the library, and he ended up eating cookies for lunch, stuff like that.
Before the Pesach break, there was a mitzvah of coming on time to Seder. One of the rewards was that there was Milava Malkas by Hanhalas houses. So one of the times by Rabbi Fogelman's house, maybe I came a little late, and he also did, but all the tables were filled with all the people, and there was one table left that it was just me and him and Shmuley Cohen sitting by a table. And I remember the whole time they were just discussing Nagunim and all the different Knechin and the Russian words, because he kached a lot in Nagunim.
I remember a lot of times Mendel would very often, when he was in the hallway during a break and he had a free couple of minutes, he would go to one of the phone rooms, quickly dial up Heichel Nagina, and start playing Nagunim. He would very often punch in the same numbers, which would play the Nagin Dunai. He told me that that's the only Nagin he knows how to find Baal Peh.
He's very into Nagunim. He always liked to sing. He used to walk around, he used to just sing Ham Nagunim. He was very, very into Nagunim and to learn every single file and the order and who made it. He used to just mamish sit there on the phone by Nichayach, most of his day and listen to Nagunim.
All the time he would walk in the hallway, you would hear him, not so loud, but he would always be singing a Niggun to himself.
Mendel was always very, very Masudar.
He was a very big mensch. And when he was very neat, he used to throw out his plate after he's done, he was very makbid certain things.
Mendel Bechlal was a very Masudar Dekabacher, we saw his farm were very neat, his binders, his papers, his notes, everything. He was very Masudar when he got to the shiurim, the learning.
Yeah, at the end of every single Zman, Rabbi Fogelman would announce the top 3 people in Shmiras HaStarim who was on time to the most Starim or the most percentage of Starim, and he was, I think, every single time the first one.
He took Seder very seriously. He was always the guy that you would see running to Seder last minute, like Kipshute running.
Mendel always kept track of the time. He always spent his time fully. You never really saw him wasting any time.
Once in the summer we had a trip, went to ropes coursing. So there was a bunch of levels, and there was the hardest level, which was I think level 6. And only a couple Bachrim were able to do it. So Mendel, he was one of those Bachrim, he did it, and after he was saying oh my God, it was so hard, but we did it. It just shows you that he was able to have fun also. He was learning. When he was in learning, he was doing it seriously. When he was having fun, he knew how to have fun also.
We once went on a Shabbaton last year to Tannersville. That bus ride was definitely a very hectic one, but right behind me, the row behind me, Mendel was sitting there on the phone.
I remember Mendel, he borrowed one of the Shluchim's phones.
He was sitting there with his finger in his ear, and had as many Sichas Kedesh. He was learning the Farbrengen of Purim Tafshin Yad Aleph. Just a very cool tear to see, even though it was totally chaotic on that bus, he still was able to sit and learn, and he wasn't expelled from the situation around him.
The first house of the summer, Mendel Bluming asked me if I wanted to learn a Sikha with him. Finally picked out a Sikha, and it was a very short Sikha, and Ha'ara 16 was very, very long. And we got up to Ha'ara 16, and he started learning it, and I hacked him with China that if you do it, I'm gonna leave. And then finally he started doing it, and I left. Then 5 minutes later, he runs upstairs with 2 Svarim and sits down on my bed and then forces me to learn the rest of Sikha. And I really appreciate that now.
Mendel Bluming was very, very into stories, Bechlal, of Chassidim and Rebbeim.
Mendel really tried to get me into start reading Chassidish Shemaisis over novels or anything else I was reading.
Many times he would always read at night. He read a bunch of things. He started reading Sefer HaZichronos. He read Likutei Diburim. And sometimes I would just randomly ask him what he's reading. He would chazer me.
He was telling me how he feels how it's super important that Bachrim should have a Chassidish halachas, knowing like stories of Chassidim and Rebbeim and everything.
Sometimes he would come over to me after calling his father or reading an interesting story somewhere, and he used to tell me an interesting story he just saw or interesting vart from a sicha or something.
Another thing is that he had a very strong sense of achrayus, responsibility towards other Bachrim. So it very much bothered him if he saw Bachrim doing things that he felt, not bad things, but things that was pasnish and not befitting for Bachar.
He always would notice whenever he felt like people were doing something that they shouldn't be doing, but he never called them out on it. He would always talk to them nicely and explain why they shouldn't be doing it, and he was always very nice about it. And you never felt like he was, oh, you're such a bad person.
Mendel was very edel, that's for sure. He definitely had a lot of Avisol for everybody. He used to tell me off, but he always did it in a very, very, very nice way. He definitely showed that he cared.
When you're not doing the thing you're meant to be doing, let's say it's learning or whatever it is, he will give you a face that's stern, it's not what you're meant to be doing now. You're meant to learn.
Whenever everyone was doing something and it wasn't right, let's say, even though that's what everyone was doing, Mendel was never the guy that's what everyone's doing, so that's what we're gonna do. He always did what was right, no matter what anyone thought or what anyone said.
He very much paid attention to where other people are and tried to help them and encourage them that everyone should be doing better and should acting the way it's supposed for a tamim.
I know to this day, Bachrim, that they go to mikvah, they do chidas shalom because Mendel told them, he tried getting them to do this, he tried inspiring them, and he succeeded.
Purim, the Bachrim were split up into different groups, and we went to different shluchim. So I went to Newton, I had a group of Bachrim, and Mendel was with me. We had a laning or two in the morning, but then the main party was going to be later in the evening, starting 4:30, 5 o'clock. So we had a large gap of time that we didn't really have anything to do. So right away, I'm thinking what to do. Mendel comes over, he goes to the shelf, pulls out Likutei Sichos, and he's like, hey, let's learn a Purim Sicha. It's just very inspiring to see a Bachar on Purim, which is a day of excitement, say no, we have time now, let's learn Torah, let's learn the Sicha on Purim.
I remember my first week of Mitzvayim, I went with Mendel Mitzvayim, me and him. And it was my first time, it was probably my first time speaking to him because we just came to Yeshiva, I never met him before. And I remember going with Mitzvayim, I wasn't really into it. I remember I went into a store and bought something and sat down on the bench. He's like, we have to do Mitzvayim, and he went on and continued, and was asking people while I sat there. And I think that definitely left an impression on me.
When it came to Miftzayim, he always went on Miftzayim with a bren, always mit a Tnua von Ufaratzta, mit a Starkheit.
Mendel Bluming wanted very much that the people on our Miftzayim route should understand what they're being told. For example, one of the last weeks that we visited a person on our route, he decided that he's going to print in English Shema, what Shema means in English for him in order that he should understand what he's saying, and it shouldn't just be gibberish.
We used to go on Miftzayim to the old age home. There would be a lot of people that would be talking, and I would get a little bit impatient, but he would have a lot of patience and would have a lot of, obviously, sorrow for everyone.
He was very, very into making sure that the people on the Mitzvayim route, it shouldn't just be a one-time thing that we visit them once a week. It should be something that actually means something to them.
Every week I used to drive the Bachrim to West Hartford on the Mitzvayim. I used to stop by a gas station to get drinks for the Bachrim. As my van pulled up, another car pulled up as well. And I walked out of the car, and this Irish guy came over to me and said, Shalom Aleichem, or something like that. And I obviously asked him if I was on the phone. It took a little convincing, but right when he said yes, who was there to my side that had the phone on him was ready to put on the phone, someone, Mendel Bluming. He had his little bag, his little phone bag, which he used to carry around with him, and he pulled out his phone and started wrapping up this Yid phone, and this is the last phone which I know, which Mendel did the same with.
On the way back, in between summer and Yeshiva's kites, sitting in the bus, I was very bored, and I had my phone. I was doing podcasts, with a couple Bachrim, was interviewing them, and so I pulled my phone, and I started interviewing Mendel Bluming, asking a question, whatever. He was playing along with it, he was giving his opinions on things.
Mendel Bluming. Where did you grow up?
The Rebbe's Shchun and the Rebbe's Al-Damas Crown Heights.
Want to tell us a little about yourself?
I'm in Suffolk, Connecticut. Yeshiva, Suffolk, Connecticut. 15 years old. I grew up in Crown Heights. I was born in the year Tav Samach Tes. So Torah since the beginning till the end. All the years of Corona happened in the middle of my life, so still gonna mess it up.
Did you ever come across any like hardships that you felt like needed to be dealt with?
Yeah, one of them was changing my socks every day. That was one of them.
Said, I asked him what was the first time what was your first memory of being in 770, for example. He said, oh, I remember I was like in third grade and I was yelling Steinsball pen running around the entire 770 and everyone was looking at me like a retard.
Yeah, I can remember running around the benches in 770 and the Buckram staring at me because I was screaming out loud. Steinsball pen.
He was never satisfied with where he was. Always looking to grow, to do better, to do more. And even though if he would have compared himself to Bacham around him, he was a solid Chassidish Bacher. And he always had a very strong desire to grow. He always wanted to speak to his mashpia often because he felt like he wants to move, not just stay the same.
Mendel was a very Chassidish Bacher, but he never stopped where he was. He always continued going, trying to get higher and higher, and that's something we can all learn from.
The example of Chassidish Bacher is Mendel. This is profoundly impactful as well. On people that have contact with Mendel, it provides them a real sense of, this is correct, I'm going to do this. It ends up being a compass.
When Rav Yosef Klein came to Farbrengen on Tes Kislev, he was looking for an example of Chassidish Bacher, and he was able to see right away Mendel Bluming. He used him as an example of someone who's a Chassidish Bacher, Emes Tamim.
Having such a Bacher in Yeshiva, having such a personality in Yeshiva, it picks up the whole class. The whole shiur is picked up. And right now, the impact is still there. The shiur is picked up.
Mendel was a Bacher that he was constantly looking for a higher she'ifa. He was always looking to go more than what was demanded from him, than what the norm was. I saw this by an example where I was giving a chabur to the Alter Bacher when a Maimer, and Mendel was, in his Eidel way, going around the chabura, trying to listen in to hear a vart, maybe more of an iyuduk vart, more of a tif vart. He was always looking for something higher and deeper.
Constantly brought lichtigkeit to himself, to everyone around him. In Farbrengenischen, in Negunim, in Chassidische Meises, in Gemara Le'ion.
Ja, stammen ist nicht stark in einem Tag, was geht da durch, was natürlich der Mann sich wegnehmen. Es tut ein Stückchen sehr, zu sein besser, zu tun besser.
Kama pa'amim, he would come and ask me tiefe shaylas in the Anhoge, bekesher with Mashiach, bekesher with the Emunah as Mashiach kommt, as otot kommt Mashiach. How do you live a life in Golus, bepnimius, when b'shas meise you have to know as otot kommt Mashiach and magit arois von Golus.
Vet inside,